A man doesn't lose control because of what he sees, he loses control because of what he feels. You see, sight is a doorway, but emotion is the magnet. When a man encounters a woman whose energy carries calm confidence, whose presence feels grounded yet alive, something inside him begins to stir, not the kind of attraction that fades with time, but the kind that bypasses reason. It's not about beauty, perfection, or even charm. It's about energy. Everything in this universe vibrates, and a human being responds not to form but to frequency. When your energy vibrates on the level of self-worth, serenity, and quiet magnetism, it transmits a signal that the subconscious cannot ignore. That signal doesn't scream, it whispers, and yet it pulls with undeniable force. It tells him there is something rare, something he doesn't fully understand, but desperately wants to experience more of. Men are wired to chase, but the chase isn't always physical. It's often energetic. When he senses a field of emotion around you that feels safe, exciting, and unpredictable all at once, he begins to lose his grip on control. Control lives in the conscious mind, in logic, in reason. But emotion lives in the subconscious. And when emotion takes over, logic dissolves. That is why some people can't explain why they can't stop thinking about someone. It's because that person activated a part of them they couldn't control. A woman who operates from this level doesn't try to be captivating, she is captivating. Her energy speaks before her words do. Her silence communicates more than her speech, and her calm presence makes noise in his heart. When you walk into a room with awareness of your own value, your energy expands beyond the limits of your body. People feel it before they see you. It's the kind of presence that slows down time. A man may not consciously register it, but his emotions do. He feels a shift, a subtle pull, because emotional magnetism transcends appearances. It's not about what you wear or how you move. It's about the vibration that underlies your movement. If your inner dialogue is aligned with abundance, self-trust and peace, it radiates outward, wrapping everything you do in invisible gold. That is the kind of energy that dissolves control because it speaks to something deeper in him than the intellect. It speaks to his instincts, his soul, his emotional memory. Emotional magnetism doesn't come from effort, it comes from authenticity. When you are not performing to impress or pretending to fit a mold, your energy stabilizes and stability is magnetic. It's the calm eye of the storm that draws him in. He senses that your presence doesn't depend on his attention, that your worth isn't tethered to his approval, and that realization flips a switch inside him. Control relies on predictability, magnetism thrives on mystery. When you move from a place of emotional alignment, you invite him into that mystery. His logical mind tries to categorize you, but it can't. His emotions take over, and he begins to feel rather than think. That feeling becomes the point of no return. The secret zone where his usual power to stay detached slowly fades, and his heart, once guarded, begins to surrender to something he can't name but can no longer resist. When a woman stands in her certainty, something extraordinary happens in the energy around her. It's not the loud kind of confidence that demands attention or approval. It's quiet, steady, and undeniable. A man feels it before he even understands it. Certainty has its own frequency. It communicates without words. It tells him that this woman knows who she is, that she moves from self-knowledge rather than fear, that she doesn't seek validation because she already carries it within her. This is where his control begins to falter, not because she takes it from him, but because her presence dissolves the need for it. Certainty disarms him. It makes him feel safe and challenged at the same time. He senses that she cannot be conquered, not because she resists, but because she stands so firmly within herself that there is nothing to conquer. That kind of strength doesn't fight for power, it simply is power. When a woman embodies this inner assurance, she changes the emotional atmosphere around her. Her movements are unhurried, her words intentional, her energy consistent. She doesn't rush to fill silence or explain herself, because she is not afraid of being misunderstood. She trusts that her energy will speak for her. That trust is what captivates a man's subconscious mind. He may not understand why he feels drawn to her, but he does. His own energy, often restless and searching, finds grounding in her stillness. She becomes the calm in his chaos, not by fixing him, but by being unwavering in her own center. This kind of feminine certainty activates something primal in him, the desire to protect, to serve, to connect. It awakens the part of him that feels most alive when he is in the presence of true stability. Certainty is magnetic because it eliminates emotional noise. When you are uncertain, you radiate confusion. When you are certain, you radiate clarity. A man can feel the difference instantly. In your certainty, you don't chase, you don't plead, you don't prove, you allow. You understand that what is meant for you will flow toward you, and that inner peace becomes your silent authority. He begins to sense that you don't need him, and paradoxically, that makes him want you more deeply. Not from ego, but from instinct. He feels that you are not a reflection of his desires, but a force that stands independent of them. That independence pulls him in, not as a conquest, but as a curiosity. Feminine certainty doesn't mean being detached from emotion. It means being rooted in it. It means allowing your emotions to exist without letting them control you. It's the art of feeling deeply, yet standing strong. When a man meets a woman who lives in that space, he feels the duality, softness with strength, emotion with control, openness with boundaries. It's confusing to his mind, but intoxicating to his spirit. Her certainty doesn't challenge him directly, it invites him to rise. It mirrors his potential back to him. In her presence, his usual power dynamics fade because there is no battle to win. He finds himself drawn into her world, not because she tries to pull him in, but because her certainty creates a gravitational field that he can't resist. That is the essence of feminine power, not in dominance, but in presence. It's the quiet knowing that says, I am complete as I am, and that knowing becomes the space where his control dissolves into connection, where his ego quiets, and his heart begins to listen. Attraction begins in the eyes, but the kind that truly captivates a man takes root in the mind. The physical may spark interest, but it's the psychological connection that sustains desire. When a woman understands this, she stops trying to impress and begins to intrigue. Curiosity becomes her most powerful ally because what the mind cannot easily define, it cannot easily let go of. The moment a man feels mentally stimulated, when his thoughts are challenged, when his emotions are stirred in ways he doesn't expect, he starts to lose control. The logical framework through which he usually operates begins to blur, and emotion starts to take the lead. This is the silent shift where physical attraction turns into something deeper, something that bypasses conscious decision making. When a woman engages his mind, she enters the unseen space of influence. It's not manipulation, it's connection at a higher frequency. She becomes a mirror that reflects not just his surface personality, but his deeper layers, his ambition, his fears, his dreams. She listens not just to reply, but to understand. She doesn't try to perform, she allows him to unfold. The way she listens, the way she holds eye contact, the pauses between her words, all these elements create psychological intimacy. It's a dance that doesn't require touch, yet it feels more intimate than any physical closeness. A man starts to feel something unfamiliar, vulnerability mixed with fascination. He can't rationalize why he's drawn to her, but he is. It's because she's communicating not only with his conscious mind, but with his subconscious one, where emotions are stored and guarded. This shift from physical to psychological attraction transforms the dynamic. The body can only crave what it sees, but the mind craves what it can't fully understand. That's why mystery is magnetic. When she reveals just enough to spark interest, but withholds enough to provoke curiosity, she activates a loop in his brain that seeks completion. He wants to know her, not just have her. She becomes the unknown that he wants to explore, and in that desire, he surrenders a part of his control. He moves from observer to participant, from detached to emotionally invested. This is not a game of strategy, it's the natural result of depth. The more depth she shows, not through words but through energy, authenticity, and emotional presence, the more he feels pulled into her world. In this space, attraction becomes more than chemistry, it becomes resonance. He starts to associate her presence with mental stimulation and emotional safety, two rare elements that rarely coexist. When she speaks with passion about her purpose, when she expresses her values without apology, when she embodies clarity without seeking approval, his admiration shifts from surface to soul. The conversations linger in his mind long after they end. Her laughter echoes in his thoughts, not because of its sound, but because of how it made him feel. She becomes a thought he can't quiet, an emotion he can't categorize. That is the secret of psychological attraction. It doesn't demand attention, it holds it effortlessly. It's the invisible thread that ties emotion to memory, desire to respect, and curiosity to surrender. And once that thread is formed, a man is no longer in control of how deeply he feels, because what has touched his mind will inevitably reach his heart. Detachment is not indifference. It is the quiet form of power that few truly understand. It is the art of caring deeply without clinging, of loving without losing oneself, of being fully present yet emotionally free. When a woman embodies detachment, she becomes a paradox, available but unattainable, warm yet untouchable, connected yet independent. A man feels that contrast instantly. He senses that she enjoys him but doesn't depend on him, that her happiness exists with or without his attention. That realization confuses his ego but awakens his spirit. Control begins to slip away, not because she takes it from him, but because her energy no longer gives him anything to hold on to. She cannot be manipulated by absence, nor swayed by flattery. She moves on her own rhythm, not his, and that unpredictability becomes magnetic. Detachment is not coldness, it's emotional maturity. It's knowing that attachment to outcomes leads to suffering, while trust in self leads to peace. When she no longer needs to prove her worth, her energy becomes lighter. There's no tension, no urgency, no chase. She allows what comes and releases what goes. And in that allowance, she radiates something powerful: freedom. Freedom is irresistible because it reflects what most people secretly crave. A man may not admit it, but he is drawn to the woman who doesn't try to control him, who gives him space to breathe yet never fades into the background. She respects his autonomy because she respects her own. That balance between closeness and independence creates emotional tension, the kind that keeps him coming back without knowing why. He feels seen but not possessed, wanted but not trapped, and that experience disarms his usual control mechanisms. When a woman is detached, she no longer reacts from fear. She doesn't chase answers or force emotions. She trusts timing, she trusts energy, and most of all, she trusts herself. That inner security becomes the most powerful signal she sends out. It tells the world, I am whole, with or without you. And wholeness is the rarest form of beauty. It's what makes her unpredictable in the best way. Not impulsive, but self-directed. A man who meets that kind of energy feels an unfamiliar mix of admiration and vulnerability. He can't manipulate what doesn't seek his approval. He can't control what doesn't need his validation. His usual strategies: withdraw, emotional distance, silence, stop working. Instead of chasing control, he finds himself chasing connection, wanting to understand what fuels her calmness, what keeps her so grounded when everyone else reacts. Detachment also shifts the balance of power within him. The moment he realizes that her emotional world doesn't revolve around his presence, his own emotional world begins to tilt. He becomes the one thinking, questioning, longing. He finds himself imagining her, wondering if she's thinking of him, missing the energy that once flowed effortlessly toward him. That longing is the direct result of her detachment. The energetic vacuum it creates pulls him in. The more she stands in her peace, the more he feels compelled to reach for it. The beauty of detachment lies in its silence. It doesn't demand, it doesn't chase, it simply is. It holds space for connection without fear of loss, and in that space, the man's control dissolves into desire, his logic fades into emotion, and his heart begins to respond to the one thing it cannot master: freedom wrapped in presence. When you hold a mirror to a man's hidden self, something powerful begins to unfold within him. Most men walk through life wearing invisible armor, layers of confidence, humor, control, and detachment built over years of conditioning. They are taught to be strong, to provide, to protect, but rarely to feel. Underneath that exterior often lies a quieter truth: fear of vulnerability, longing for connection, a deep desire to be seen beyond the roles they perform. When a woman looks past the surface and reflects his depth back to him, she awakens emotions he has long kept buried. It's not about fixing him or analyzing him. It's about creating a space where he feels safe to be seen without judgment. That space becomes the zone where control slips, because it touches something he no longer knows how to control: his heart. Men are not used to emotional recognition. They are used to admiration, attraction, respect, but not emotional reflection. When a woman sees his struggle and meets it with understanding instead of criticism, it disarms him completely. He starts to sense that she doesn't just notice his strength, she understands his silence. She feels the weight he carries, not because he told her, but because she can read what isn't said. That awareness doesn't just touch his mind, it touches his soul. He feels safe to exhale, and that safety becomes addictive. It's not the excitement of passion that pulls him in now, it's the calm of emotional acceptance. He realizes that around her, he doesn't have to perform, he can just be. And in a world where men are constantly expected to hold control, that feeling of being able to let go becomes irresistible. This mirror effect is subtle yet profound. It doesn't come from questioning him or demanding emotional openness. It comes from presence, from listening, observing, and responding with empathy instead of reaction. It's the way she notices the hesitation in his voice, the unspoken meaning behind his words, the moments when he withdraws to protect himself. Instead of chasing or criticizing, she holds space. That stillness is magnetic. It tells him, "I see you even when you're silent." And that message penetrates deeper than any words ever could. When he feels that kind of understanding, his emotional defenses soften. His instinct to stay in control weakens, not because he chooses to surrender, but because surrender feels safe for the first time. The mirror she holds doesn't reflect his flaws, it reflects his potential. It reminds him of the man he wants to be, the dreams he's suppressed, the parts of himself that have gone numb. Around her, he begins to reconnect with those lost fragments. He starts to feel more alive, more inspired, more human. That's the power of emotional mirroring. It doesn't just make him fall in love with her, it makes him fall back in love with himself through her. And when a man associates you with that kind of awakening, control becomes irrelevant. His ego, once his armor, begins to loosen. His logic fades, replaced by trust. He finds comfort in the way she understands his silence, fascination in the way she reads his energy, and peace in the way she doesn't demand anything from him except authenticity. That is where the real surrender happens, not through words or actions, but through the emotional reflection that makes him feel truly seen for the first time in his life. Everything in existence vibrates, and every person emits an energy field that mirrors their internal state. The zone where a man loses control is not found in appearance, touch, or even words. It begins in energy. When a woman aligns her inner vibration with self-worth, peace, and purpose, she becomes a transmitter of frequency that cannot be ignored. Her presence communicates before her voice does. A man may be drawn to her physical beauty, but what keeps him captivated is something far deeper, the resonance of her vibration. It's an energy that tells him she knows who she is, that she's not seeking completion through him, but expansion through life itself. That vibration feels different, and it compels him to lean closer, to understand, to connect. He doesn't lose control to her, he loses control to the feeling she evokes within him. a feeling that defies logic and awakens emotion. The law of inner vibration is simple yet profound. You attract who you are, not what you want. When your energy is rooted in lack, you draw confusion and inconsistency. But when your energy is anchored in self-love and clarity, you attract alignment. A man senses that frequency on a subconscious level. He can't name it, but he feels it. It's in the tone of your voice, the calmness of your gaze, the rhythm of your presence. He feels steadiness, and it contrasts the noise of the world around him. That steadiness begins to unsettle him, not in discomfort, but in curiosity. He wants to know why your energy feels like home. He starts to question what it is about you that quiets his chaos, what it is that draws him back even when he tries to stay composed. That's the power of vibration. It bypasses intellect and speaks directly to the emotional body. When a woman's energy is in harmony, she doesn't chase or demand, she attracts naturally. Her boundaries are clear but gentle, her energy inviting but contained. She radiates a sense of enoughness, an aura that says, I am already fulfilled. That energy creates polarity. He feels the pull, not because she's doing something intentional, but because her vibration triggers his desire to rise to her level. His usual control mechanisms, logic, distraction, ego, start to weaken under the influence of her frequency. It's not dominance that draws him, it's resonance. He doesn't want to control her, he wants to align with her. This is why the deepest attraction doesn't come from effort, but from energy. Energy alignment also creates emotional coherence when thoughts, feelings, and actions all move in the same direction. That coherence makes her energy consistent, and consistency builds trust without words. He begins to associate her presence with peace, her silence with understanding, her absence with longing. Her vibration lingers long after she's gone because energy doesn't fade, it imprints. The man who once relied on logic finds himself moved by something unseen yet undeniable. He cannot analyze it, and that lack of control both unsettles and excites him. Her vibration has entered his emotional field, changing the rhythm of his own. The more she remains aligned, the deeper he falls into the pull of that frequency until control becomes irrelevant and connection becomes inevitable. That is the silent law of energy, the unspoken truth that what is in harmony with itself naturally draws others into its orbit, not by force, but by the undeniable magnetism of vibration.